might affect the rivalries a little bit. The teams know each other really well. I want to agree with your point. Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, they all know each other, the teams. But there won't be any institutional memory in the two new buildings. Both the Chargers in LA and the Raiders in Las Vegas are opening up in brand new stadiums, but without any fans. So I can't see there'll be a huge early advantage to them in their home stadium.
Scott?
Well, I mean, around here, the rivalry is really the Chargers and the Raiders. I also want to add, and LA has been a Raiders town for a long time, and I think it's a good thing for the Chargers that they're going to be playing in the empty stadium, because when the Raiders come to town from Oakland or Las Vegas, they draw very strong, and the Chargers had such poor fan support in probably the worst stadium in the NFL last year, in their first year in LA, and now they're here in a brand new stadium, but still, LA is kind of a Raiders town first and a Rams town second, and we're just kind of learning to get familiar with the Chargers, and it's going to take some winning to really win over the LA fans, but I foresee that the Chargers and Raiders will maintain a strong rivalry.
You know, it's funny to look at these four teams, and you can look up there in the corner, and if you're not familiar with the AFC West, but two of these teams, especially now, have what could be argued as the best home field advantage in the NFL with their intense fan support. In Mile High Stadium in Denver, the altitude is a factor with Denver. It's always been an advantage. They've had just teams don't breathe as well at 5,000 feet. So Kansas City is just a noisy place. Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, all these are very loud stadiums, but I believe Kansas City has been measured as far as the loudest NFL stadium. Maybe it's Seattle. Anyway, they're right there together. And then conversely, the San Diego Chargers, as Scott has mentioned, playing in Carson in a soccer stadium, largely made up of the other team's fans the last couple of seasons, no home field advantage to note. The Oakland Raiders have been a lame duck in Oakland the last year or two. And then as Larry pointed out, they're going to be playing in what appears to be an empty stadium, as maybe all the stadiums will be empty. But, man, you talk about losing a home field advantage if you don't have the fans for the Broncos and the Chiefs. Does that, before we get into the specific teams, does that maybe lend itself to maybe an upset brewing in this division, just based on maybe that intangible?
I just don't think that the Broncos and the Chiefs will be very intimidated going on the road to the new stadiums of the LA Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders, because it'll be brand new for the home teams as well. And no real fan support, empty stadiums. The Raiders in Vegas for sure aren't going to have any fans in the stadium, at least for quite a while. And LA also is very strict on attendance. So I happen to agree with your comment. The overwhelming home support and comfort that the Broncos and the Chiefs have, especially the Broncos a mile high, that's an advantage. But I don't think that the LA Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders start off with any home field advantage.
Scott?
Well, I don't see an upset happening in the division. We'll talk about the individual teams later, just because the Chiefs are such a complete team. But, yeah, like Larry said, I don't see much of a home field advantage playing in front of an empty stadium. I mean, they're just themselves, the Chargers and Raiders, getting used to their new locker rooms and practice facilities there. So I think in a couple of years, this could be pretty big, having very nice brand new stadiums. But this year, unless we can get some fans in there, I don't see that going to be much intimidation to any of the visiting teams. Like Larry alluded to, Denver is the only one that with no fans will still have a home field advantage because they're used to breathing that air. Whereas the other teams go up to Denver, they might be wearing down by the fourth quarter. So that could give a bit of an edge.
I will say, Nolan, as you know, when the Golden Knights came to Vegas, they took over this town. And that stadium, the T-Mobile Arena, which is across the street, from the new Raiders Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. That place does rock. And Vegas deserved a sports team. Now they've got two. And the community will rally around the Raiders. But it may not be the same Raiders. The black hole, the Raiders with all their crazy blue-collar fans. I mean, Vegas is a very classy kind of family, touristy. I just don't see that the Raider mystique necessarily translates right away into Las Vegas.
Excellent. Excellent point. Well, let's get to each team now. We're going to go through each of the four. We might as well start at the top. I think most of us are going to have a consensus view that there's one team that's head and shoulders above the rest. And although, again, anything is possible in the NFL for sure. But let's go ahead and start with the obvious choice. The Kansas City Chiefs, projected at 11 wins, 11 and a half wins in some places. Spreads.ca, right behind me here. They're the side out of Canada. They have all the teams up, and their projection is 11 and a half wins for the Kansas City Chiefs. By the way, Andy Reid, I believe, has won 12 games. The head coach of the Chiefs has won 12 games or more four of the last 6 seasons. And this team, yeah, they're the Super Bowl champions, but they seem to just win, baby. They just win in Kansas City. Would you go over or under the, let's say, the 11 and a half? Scott, you go first, please.
I like the over. I just see the Chiefs as such a complete team. I think they have the best offense in the entire league with really no flaws. Even with their starting running back staying at home, they got the rookie Edwards-Helaire coming in, and everything I hear about him and what I've seen in college, he looks like a fantastic player. And Patrick Mahomes just signing for $500 million, I mean, shows what they think of him. And I think their defense is solid, and even so, you don't need much of a defense if you're scoring 35 points a game. And really, this team are the champs, and I see a good chance of them repeating as champs, and I like them to get at least 12 wins.
Larry?
I like the over also. I see 12 wins. You got the best coach, one of the best quarterback, one of the best. Somehow, Nolan, their schedule got easier this year, even though they won the Super Bowl. So that's interesting. They can even play in the snow, it appears. The case for the under would be injuries being a basic risk for every team. Last year, they lost a couple games when Mahomes was out. They still managed to win, I think, 12 games. You can run against the Chiefs. Their pass defense was pretty elite. They control the ball. They get a lead. They have an offensive genius as their coach, potential Hall of Famer. I like their team speed. I like their wide receivers, Watkins and Hill and Kelsey and Hardman. Their defense is solid. And the other thing, Nolan, is I don't see how you get to 5 or 6 losses this year for the Chiefs. Week 3, they have at Baltimore on Monday Night Football. That could be tough. Week 4 on a short week, they play New England, but they're not as strong this year. They do have Belichick, of course. We might want to watch to see if Cam Newton is playing well. Week 6, Thursday Night Football at the Bills could be a tough game. Week 12 at Tampa Bay. By then, the Tampa Bay Buck offense might be gelling with Brady. Week 15 at the Saints. And then week 17, the Chargers. And if they're in a battle with the Ravens for the number 1 spot, which means something, then I think the Chiefs will definitely want to try to win week 17. So I have trouble coming up, with more than 4 or 5 losses. So I'm going to lean over.
Yeah, well, I can see you both, the logic that you've expressed. I'm going to go contrarian only because somebody has to, be the bad guy here and ruin the birthday party for the Chiefs. But obviously a loaded team. Let me get your feedback on what I'm about to say. Yes, a remarkable offense, one of the best offenses over the last 2 seasons in terms of scoring and yardage gain that really in history of the league. However, that defense has some major holes. Keep in mind that the Chiefs fell behind by 17 in their first playoff game. They fell behind, I believe, by 10 or 14, I forgot which, but in the AFC Championship game, and they were behind by 10 early in the fourth quarter to the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Now, they came back and won all three of those games, and they covered the spread in all three of those games. So, hey, give the Chiefs a lot of credit, especially that offense. But the defense started out very poorly, gave up a lot of points, a lot of yards. And what I'm wondering is, you can't be digging holes like that in the NFL and expect to come back from 10, 13, 14, 17-point deficits. There are too many good teams, too many good coaches in this league for that, for you to essentially be at a crap table and keep rolling sevens. I'm thinking maybe this is the contrarian spot to say, yeah, Kansas City gets in the playoffs. They win, let's say they go 10-6. Maybe they get lazy a couple of weeks, have a couple of letdowns. I mean, they're not going to be a 6-10 team, but maybe they just coast because they know they're so far superior. They get lazy. There's a little bit of a hangover from the Super Bowl, and they go 10-6, which is well under, at least a game and a half under, their 11.5 win projection. That's my contrarian view. Who wants to field that and put me in my place?
Well, I'll just jump in real quick. The best player in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs was Damian Williams, and he is opting out of playing this year, I think out of respect for his mom and COVID. So there is an under case. You can run on the Chiefs, and they've lost their best running back. So now they've got the rookie, and we'll see how he does. So that is a little speculative. What I would do, Nolan, with what you've said, which I sort of agree with, is when they play a team that can pound them and run against them, then the game might be kept lower scoring. So you might look for an under, and the Chiefs could run the risk of falling behind and losing that game. But if they get on a fast track and the weather's good and Mahomes is healthy, then it doesn't help that teams can run on the Chiefs because they have to pass to catch up.
Scott?
I'll add in that I disagree with your sentiment. I don't think the defense is bad at all. I think all the teams that got the head start on the Chiefs in the playoffs were very good teams. I mean, they're not going to play teams of that caliber every week, and yet the Chiefs still won those games. So I see them continuing to win a lot of games, and while anything is possible in the NFL, I just really see the talent on that team and think they're loaded.
That's a really good point. Both of you just made excellent points, and I have to say, I have to concede, especially that point, that when you beat in succession the Baltimore Ravens, the Tennessee Titans, and the San Francisco 49ers coming back from double digits, that's showing, that's some talent. So I certainly understand that point of view. Maybe I'll back off and not bet the under and jump in front of a freight train. We'll move on now to the next team. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. This is a team that's been really down for the last 4 or 5 seasons. So many years of success in Denver, but since John Elway's been the general manager, doesn't seem like they found a quarterback. Very good defense off and on for a few years here. A lot of good wideouts, but just the moving parts. They just haven't put together the right parts to contend in this division. However, the odds makers are thinking the Broncos are going to make a leap forward here and win at least 8 games. Maybe a little bit of a reach, or maybe this could be a dark horse to win the division. Dark horse, get that, Broncos? Anyway, Larry Greenfield, what do you think?
I'm kind of neutral on the 8 number. I might lean over at 7.5. I want to stay away from 8. I don't think the Broncos can go 9-7. They actually have a really rough start to the season, Nolan. They play a lot of really strong teams with rushing defenses, good rushing defenses. The Titans, the Steelers, the Bucks, the Jets, believe it or not, rushing D, and then the Pats. So they're going to have to pass a lot. And I'm not sure Drew Lock early in the year will be quite ready to dominate. Let me see my Bronco notes here. I predict a slow start and then an easier second half of the schedule. They played a lot of close games last year. Their kicker missed a big kick, I think. They lost 1 game. Pat Shurmur's the offensive coordinator. He did do well with the Vikings. He helped Case Keenum to go 13-3 1 year. So a little bit of respect to the offense. They drafted well, Jerry Jeudy, the best prospect out of Alabama. KJ Hamler out of Penn State is a playmaker. They have a decent receiving core, but how long has he had to work with them? So I think they're going to get off to a little bit of a slow start. Locke, he's middling. He's got some happy feet. I need to see a lot more. He was 4-1 as a starter last year, but not against top competition. Probably he's better than Flacco, but not much. Can Locke beat Carr and Tyrod Taylor in close games? That's really the issue. They've got Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. They got to retool and they got to gel. Their defense is very good. Vic Fangio, second year, he's a good coach. They did not get a lot of pressure last year from Von Miller. Look for him to bounce back. Chubb had 12 sacks as a rookie, but only 1 in his 4 games last year before he got injured. They did add the Titans Pro Bowler, Jarrell Casey, and they added A.J. Bouye. The safeties are good. The outside cornerback is good. I see unders in terms of points for weekly for the Broncos.
Larry, could you repeat that, please?
Oh, the whole thing?
Larry, that was too good. It was beautiful, man. I knew if we had an attorney on here, it would just, it would really be broken down well. Beautiful job.
Prosecute the case.
You got a hard act to follow, Mr. Samarel.
Yeah.
Denver Broncos.
Well, yeah, I think the Broncos have the same problem as both of the other non-Chiefs teams in this division, in that they have a real question mark at quarterback. I mean, Locke has shown some promising signs, but he's unproven, and nobody really knows how good he is. So I really can't take over 8 on an unproven quarterback like this, even though I think they probably have the best defense in the division, and they have a pair of strong running backs. But I pegged them at about 7 or 8 wins. So if you're making me pick on one side or the other of 8, I would lean towards the under and see. Maybe they can surprise. But I think the division is going to be relatively tough, and he's got some learning to do. Talking about Drew Lock, and we'll see if he's the quarterback for them or if they need to go back to the drawing board. And quarterback is the main position in football, as we all know, and you usually go as far as they can take you. So I would have to lean under just on the fact that I don't trust the quarterback.
By the way, let me ask you a follow-up on this. You made an interesting observation. I think it calls for a little more depth, and that's a rookie quarterback playing well in the age of COVID, which has 2 major consequences. One, maybe no fans in the stands. So that could work both ways. I'm thinking it probably works positively in the sense, obviously, if you're going on the road, it's hard to win as a rookie quarterback on the road. Now that's somewhat neutralized. And then the converse to that is somewhat of a disruption or a distraction in terms of preparation. You come out of college, you're drafted, you sign the big contract, you've got essentially maybe a couple of months really to get ready to play NFL football, which is a quantum leap in terms of the speed and complexity of the schemes. Talk about being thrown into, the fire without maybe all of the preparation they would normally have, including, let me stress the word, including the usual 4 preseason games, which this rookie quarterback will not have played. So how might that, you've already kind of said that you don't trust the rookie quarterback, but I'd like you to add those complications on top of the pressure on him. What do you think, Scott Samarel?
Well, just to correct, and he's not a rookie. He has a season under his belt and a few starts. He's a second-year quarterback.
Excuse me.
But he's not very
I completely
experienced.
blew that, yes. You're right. I have no notes here. I just completely blew that. I forgot he did start a few games. Never mind. Yeah, anyway, he's still a young quarterback, though, the same problem. So right. pretend that I just didn't say that for the last 2 or 3 minutes, but go ahead.
But, I mean, I think he really could use a preseason, being that he's only had a handful of starts, and he's still a young quarterback out to prove himself with some new receivers and a couple of guys from the team he had last year. And a new running back to deal with. So I think this is a team, at least offensively, that's really going to miss those 4 preseason games. But again, the defense is strong and is going to keep them in games. And I really see them around the 7 to 8 win mark. And like I said, I would go under 8, expecting a very good chance of a push. But if they hit the 7 wins, then I'm cashing out.
Anything to add, Mr. Greenfield?
Yeah, so Drew Lock did go 4-1 last year in his starts, but it wasn't against the best competition. And I think generally your point is well taken, Nolan, that rookies and second-year players who have new rookie wide receivers are going to have some trouble getting off to hot starts as offenses. So I'm looking to go under a little bit on the weekly point spreads, the over-under lines, including the Broncos with a good D.
Oh,
and
very good.
It may take a while for Lock and his receivers to connect.
Good advice. And by the way, thanks for backing me up when I had the ball. And there's Larry right behind me to throw the runner out at first, man. Thanks for backing me up. I knew that one, gentlemen. That's going to happen. I got 8 more of these to do. I'm going to make some massive F-ups, okay?
That's okay. That's okay. The other thing, I wanted to bring back one of my earlier comments, which is suppose you bet the over 11.5 on the Chiefs for the season, but Mahomes gets hurt. So the way you now hedge that bet is you bet one of their opponents, perhaps with the points or perhaps even on the money line, knowing that the Chiefs may lose a game or 2 or 3, however long Mahomes is out. That way you've hedged a potential loss on your totals bet that they would win over 11.5 games. If Mahomes goes down week 1, they're probably not going to win 12 games. So now you play the rest of the season trying to get your money back.
Excellent. Well done. All right. You're both LA guys. You've lived a good part of your life in Los Angeles. As I said earlier, seen some terrible football over the years and some pretty good football occasionally. I think that, Scott, you're actually a Los Angeles Rams season ticket holder, aren't you? Don't you go to all the games?
I was in the Coliseum. With the new stadium, it's a little out of my price range. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Anyway, well, so did you ever go to any of the Charger games since they've played in Carson?
No, I had not. I live the other side of town. Carson's a bit of a stretch, and it's a small stadium, and I don't know, just not a great situation over there. But I did not get the chance to see the Chargers.
Typical LA fans, man. Typical LA fans.
Yeah.
Nolan, I went to a game. I went to a soccer match at the Home Depot Center in Carson.
Is that what it's called? It's called the Home Depot Center?
Yeah, and an LA Chargers football game broke out.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what.
Nobody knew what they were watching.
All right. Well, we could rip on the Chargers all day long, and let's not do that. Let's try to make some money on the Chargers, which is what we're here for. By the way, again, I'm Nolan Dalla with Slapshot, brought to you by Pointspreads.ca. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live on the stream. If you're watching later at Point Spreads, that's great. Larry Greenfield there with me, a contributor to Point Spreads. There's the baby. And Scott Samarel there in the funny hat. He's going to, by the way, stick around. Scott's going to play the saxophone for us one more time, I understand. Today, Charlie Parker's 100th birthday. So let's move on. We're halfway through the card. We've talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos, and now we're going to talk about the LA Chargers. A lot of changes on this team the last couple of years, but particularly in the offseason. Phillip Rivers departing being the very biggest news on this team. He was way overdue probably to leave. Wasn't going to make this team into a Super Bowl contender. Lost a lot of close games the last year or two. They're projected to win, I think, 7.5 games is what I'm seeing. I'll double check that. I don't have my notes in front of me. What do you think of the San Diego? Sorry, I do that. The LA Chargers. I did that on purpose. Go ahead. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I actually like this team this year. I mean, again, the big questions at quarterback, they're going to go with Tyrod Taylor, it looks like, and he didn't get it done in either Buffalo or Cleveland. What makes us think he can get it done in L.A., except that he really has a fantastic supporting cast, I think. And other than the quarterback position, I think this is a strong team. I think their defense is not quite up to Denver's, but they're pretty close. And I think the offensive weapons are great. I mean, I know the wide receiver Mike Williams has come up with an injury, might miss a little bit of time, but they still have Keenan Allen. Austin Eckler proved last year at the running back position he was really good. And Hunter Henry at tight end, when he's healthy, he's as good as anybody. So they really have a lot of weapons if Tyrod Taylor can get the ball to them and the defense can keep them in games. But this team over the last few years has been probably the unluckiest team I've ever seen. I mean, I'm here in L.A. and I see them miss game-winning field goals and the other teams make game-winning field goals against them and all kinds of players just going down to freak injuries. And with both that, just bad luck and injuries, it was a miserable year last year and no home field advantage whatsoever. But this team still perseveres, and most seasons they're pretty good, last year accepted. And you said this at number 7.5, I like the over. I think they get to 8 or 9 wins, and I expect them to come in second place in this division.
Wow. Bold prediction from Scott. Says go over 7.5 on the Los Angeles Chargers. Larry Greenfield, you agree?
Very much, and also with your personnel conversation about this team. So the LA Chargers are actually favored, Nolan, in 9 of their 16 games in the early line spreads, and yet they're only 7.5 total wins. So I like the over a little bit. I think you have to pay up to get it on the VIG. They do have a good D. I think they'll play a lot of close games, a lot of low-scoring close games. I don't think they have fantastic wide receivers or a lot of dangerous long ball threats. If Taylor can be a good game manager, then I see them playing a lot of close games, tight, competitive games. They do have a good defense with Bosa and James and Harris Jr. and Ingram, and then Murray, the draftee, is the middle linebacker. They're loaded on defense. Offensively, they do have Eckler, a good offensive player. They drafted a couple running backs, by the way. Josh Kelly and Justin Jackson is quick. Maybe he's a second-year player, first or second. So I think they're going to run the ball, Nolan. They're going to stay competitive. And Taylor, I'm open-minded. I know that Anthony Lynn worked with him before, I think in Buffalo. So there's some familiarity and continuity between the coach and the quarterback. So you've got a new quarterback. It may take a while for them to gel, but their defense should keep them in a lot of games.
Well, strong comments there. I'm a little surprised that you both go over on the Chargers. And I know you're not homers here. In other words, you're not cheering for your team because they're not really your team. So that makes, I think, adds more weight to your predictions. I'll just say that, and I don't like saying this, I don't like really the direction the NFL's gone the last 15, 20 years with being a pass-happy league. In other words, just if you can throw the ball, you're always in a game. If you can move the ball, and it doesn't matter if you have a bad defense, it doesn't matter if you can run the ball, as long as you have a good quarterback and some talented wideouts. And this is the league of the quarterback. We are in the era of the quarterback and the passing game. And you could have really a lot of all the fundamentals, great linemen, even a very, very solid defense. But if you don't have that guy taking the snaps that you can count on to get the first down on 3rd and 4, or you're down by 6 points in the middle of the 4th quarter and you've got to drive 75 yards down the field and score. I mean, there are quarterbacks that can do that, and there are quarterbacks that can't get that done. And the ones that get it done, those are the teams that win 10, 11, 12 games. We have a Chargers team that, you're right, on paper, certainly the nucleus is there. Not sure about the coaching staff, still somewhat unproven. A lot of bad breaks, bad luck, injuries, lost a lot of close games. Kicking game was notorious for the Chargers the last 2 seasons. Just been awful. So, a lot of bad breaks. But Phillip Rivers didn't seem to have his head in the game the last 2 or 3 seasons. Just didn't seem to care, and is not the kind of maybe leader that a lot of players, teammates will rally around, like in the sense of a Joe Montana or, certainly a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees figure that you just want to win for that leader. That Phillip Rivers never had that quality as a leader. And I'm not so sure. Maybe the converse to what I just said, though, is that anything is better now with a new guy under center, maybe the talent rallies around this this new situation at quarterback. So based on all the things that I just said about this is a pass-happy league, and that's clearly a glaring weakness on the Chargers now, would you maybe downgrade your predictions at all, or am I still wrong?
I had one more thing.
Go ahead, Scott.
I had one more thing I forgot to add that in the Chargers' favor, helping me lean towards the over, and that's in the scheduling. With the Chargers' last place schedule, they have something none of the other teams in this division have. They have games against the Bengals and Jaguars, two of the worst teams in the league, as kind of bonuses to their schedule. That both of those should be wins, especially I believe the Bengals is in week 1 before their rookie quarterback's accustomed to the speed of the NFL. So I think those should be 2 easy wins for the Chargers to start them out on their quest towards 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, and Nolan, I like that comment. They do have a couple of softies on their schedule. I do take your point, Nolan. I don't think Taylor will outscore a lot of other quarterbacks, even in his own division. So I don't see them running to 9, 10, or 11 wins. I agree with you. I just think they have a good D. They can run the ball. They'll be competitive, and they may squeeze out 8 wins. So it's not, I wouldn't back up the truck on the over. But 7.5 is a little low. As I mentioned, they're favored in 9 of their 16. Yeah. But 7.5 is the number. So I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah. Before we get to our last team in the division, we've had a few comments from people on Facebook. The ones I can read. Randy Casper is asking, Randy, thanks for watching, first of all. Randy Casper is asking, he asked a question, if the season is shortened, are those bets canceled? Or would under wins bet cover a shortened season? In other words, what he's asking is, what if we don't play a full 16-game schedule? Does that render all the bets null and void? My understanding is, and you'll see this, I'll see if I can find the sheets right now. Well, I've got some here from basically this is the Westgate, the Las Vegas, used to be the Las Vegas Hilton. Anyway, they're all based on all the props. Basically, there's some fine print here at the top that says it's all based on a 16-game schedule. So they must play 16 games. Let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that you get to, say, 14 games, and then they somehow cancel or suspend the season, whatever happens, and say the under's already there or something. That's what Randy Casper is asking. Well, no, everything would be voided. So you won't cash any tickets until the 17th week, really, because remember, there's a bye week for teams in there. So no one can cash tickets early until the season is completed, and they must go a full 16 games, 17 games later, but 16 games for all the action to be considered legitimate. Any thoughts on what I just mentioned about that? I don't think that changes any of our handicapping or projections here, because you're kind of protected in case there's something that we don't foresee.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's too bad. Suppose you bet a team to win more than 10 games, and they're 14-0, and the NFL decides not to play the last 2 games. You should win your bet.
Yeah.
But you don't. You don't win your bet. You have to play the full schedule. Yeah.
Right. All right, so let's get to the Las Vegas Raiders. Larry and I live here now. Larry used to live in LA, but you've lived here close to the last year. And we've watched, we've been on the Strip, and you've watched this thing grow just as you go down the highway. Every single week it gets bigger and bigger, and now it's completely enclosed, ready to open, looks beautiful, a sparkling new stadium, a lot of enthusiasm here in the city of Las Vegas. Now, keep in mind that Oakland it's not like, usually when teams leave markets, they're leaving a depressed market with no fan base, or, if you look historically at NFL franchises that leave, it's always been cities that didn't support their teams. In this case, the Oakland Raiders, they sold out every game. There's rabid fan support in Northern California, and really they call it Raider Nation, throughout California and many Western states for the Raiders. They're kind of this anti-establishment team, dates back to Al Davis. So the image, the fan support for this team has been very strong the last, 60 years since they entered the league in 1960. And everything is different now, playing in the glitzy glamour of Las Vegas. So before we get to the actual team, the wins, all of that, let's talk a little more about the leaving of the old Oakland Coliseum, and playing in a superstructure here on the Las Vegas Strip. Thoughts on that, Larry?
Yeah, I have a little history with the Raiders. When I showed up to law school, I took a sports law class, and my professor was Paul Tagliabue, who was the lawyer for the NFL at the time. He went on, of course, to become a successful commissioner for the NFL. He was a wonderful man, very, very thoughtful guy. And we're arguing about the Raiders case, and I didn't even really realize he was the NFL's lawyer. And during class, I take the Raiders' side, Al Davis's side. I make the whole case about their lawsuit against the NFL. And he's just listening and nodding, good point, good point. And then somebody raises their hand and they go, "You're arguing with the guy who's the NFL lawyer?" So he was very bright guy. Very
good.
Wonderful man. And he did a good job as commissioner. I think most people agree with that. So the Raiders, it's a love-hate thing. You either love them or you hate them. Oakland, the reason they left, of course, is because that stadium was awful. And Oakland wasn't in a position, or they decided not to support, which I might even agree with, putting all the money into a new stadium when other needs are, required in Oakland. So I wish them well here in Vegas. I'm going to root for them. Raiders, silver and black in Las Vegas. I don't know. We got the Golden Knights. We got the silver and black Raiders. It's fun. It's fun that they're here. I'm super happy for the Vegas people that they got a team. So those are my thoughts on the Raiders.
All right. Before we get to the actual breakdown, well, I'm going to let you just run with the whole thing here, Scott. You can talk about what Larry just said and I mentioned, and then just get right into the Raiders. By the way, the win total on the Raiders, a lot of 500 teams here in this division, apparently. That's the forecast, 7.5. That's the projection on the Raiders. It's slightly jaded toward the under. In other words, you got to lay a little more juice if you like the under on the Raiders. What do you think, Scott Samarel?
Well, first, I'll talk about the move to Las Vegas. I mean, I definitely think that's an improvement for them in just a terrible stadium situation, moving into a brand new stadium. Like I said earlier, Los Angeles is still crazy for the Raiders. You're going to get a lot of fans driving up. I would expect there's going to be a lot of season ticket holders that live in L.A. and drive up every weekend to watch the games. They're going to get some of the fans from Oakland who are going to come into the games. Las Vegas will probably adopt them as a home team, and they'll be Las Vegas fans. So they should get a very good attendance there and a good boost of enthusiastic fans. The only problem with that is people love to go to Las Vegas. So say when the Steelers come to town, that would be a good excuse for people who lived in Pittsburgh to say, let's get some tickets to the Steeler game and fly to Vegas and make a Vegas vacation out of it. So they're going to get a lot of out-of-towners doing that if they can get tickets, but the tickets are going to be hard to come by because there's going to be a huge demand for them in Las Vegas. It's just a great spot. As far as the team itself, I really don't like either side of 7.5. If you force me to take a side, I'd have to say I'd lean under, but I'm not making that bet. It seems like they're around a 500, slightly below 500 team. I feel that they overachieved last year. I mean, they seem to have a good draft, but I don't think they have the talent level of the other teams in the division. And again, the question at quarterback is Carr. This guy, how many years does he get? I've never seen such a mediocre quarterback get so many years as a starter with the same team without them even trying to replace him. They signed Mariota, who was a failure in Tennessee, as a backup to Carr, but not really to push him. And I mean, I don't understand why this guy, who's not a terrible quarterback, but he's never done anything particularly great, why this guy comes back every year. This guy's our starter, and he's going to win us some games. And I think they overachieved their talent level last year and got lucky, and I think they're bound for a not very good season. But, again, I put them in the 7 to 8 range, and while I would like an under of 8, I really hate to go under 7.5. So I would call that line a pass, but if you're forcing me to take a side, I would go under.
Larry?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. So the Raiders were 7-9 last year, and all 7 of their victories were in one-score wins. So they were 7-3 in one-score games, and they only won 7 games, and they wound up 7-9. Gruden didn't do that bad a job. They were ahead at halftime in 9 of their 16 games last year. It was the halftime adjustments where I think they fell down a little bit. And I happen to agree. I don't think their offense could carry them in the fourth quarter to some, wins that they might have otherwise had. Their defense was terrible last year. Scott and Nolan, they were 31st in total D, 30th in pass D. They did pick up Corey Littleton at linebacker. The defensive line might improve a little bit. The defense overall might improve a little bit. It fell hard after Khalil Mack left to Chicago. They did get a player I really don't like. Let me tell you about Lamarcus Joyner. That is always the worst guy on the field. So there's a little negative there. I got a history with that guy. Offensively, they did pick up Henry Ruggs at wide receiver, but they just lost to injury Tyrell Williams, their starting wide receiver. So they faced tough passing defenses this year. So I don't like the Raiders overall. I don't think they're in a good position to dominate or run up scores on teams. 7 wins sounds about right. I probably would lean a little under, but mostly a pass for me.
Well, there's a lot of players I don't like, and all those players that I don't like cost me a shitload of money. So I got a hate relationship with the whole league, man. Yeah. So anyway, it's good breakdown on the Raiders. I do have to challenge both of you on one thing, though. Again, I have to play the contrarian bad guy here. And if you want to pull the plug and walk off the set and say, I'm never going to come on that show again, go ahead. But here we go. So let me tell you why you're both maybe wrong, or you need to rethink one thing here. In this division, you can't be saying over on the other 3 teams, or at least on 2 of them you've been somewhat enthusiastic on your overs. You've said you like the over on the
Chiefs.
The Chiefs, certainly, and also both of you kind of shocked me a little bit saying you like the over on the Chargers. And there's only so many wins available on the table here. And the Raiders, it's not like this is a 6.5. It's a 7.5. They're going to win 8 games. So you would think the last place team or even the third place team in this division is probably going to win at most 6 or 7. I mean, are they going to finish third and win and go 9-7? I don't think so. There's only just so many wins on the table is my point here. How can you possibly say I like over on these other teams and then I lean over on the you see where I'm going?
Yeah, no, I think both Scott and I leaned under on the Raiders. Are you clear on that?
You both leaned under on the Raiders. What about the Broncos?
Broncos, I was a pass. It was right at the right number.
All right.
And Chargers from me.
I think I leaned under on the Broncos as well.
All right.
I like Chargers and the Chiefs in this division.
All right. So you've both gone 2. You've both gone 2 and 2. You like 2 of the teams under and 2 over. Although Larry had mentioned he's a complete pass on the Broncos. That's my final take here.
Yeah, that's.
I'm pretty much a pass on the Raiders. I would go under on the Broncos.
Okay.
I would pass. I don't like the 7.5 number. I would like to see it at 8 to play under.
I see. And that's certainly not going to go to 8, so no chance of that. All right, good. Well, I sorry for misunderstanding. So, okay, got it. So I want to make sure I jot this down because we're going to see how we do at the end of the season with each of my guests here on the next 8 shows. So I want to make sure I definitely have your record down. And then we'll see if you're on next year's show, right? So, well, really good, very good analysis there. I've learned a few things. I've taken away a few things here. Let me get to one last thing about the division winner. Now, I don't like futures. I mean, just anybody listening to me, do not go to the Las Vegas Strip or even offshore. I just don't like the hold. I don't like the odds that are put up where it's just a terrible numbers on what are called futures. In other words, the team to win the Super Bowl or the team to win the AFC or the NFC. You're just getting completely ripped off when you bet these what are called futures wagers. So don't do that, and certainly don't let these casinos in the Strip tie up your money for 6 or 7 months. Anyway, that being said, the Kansas City Chiefs prohibitive favorites. You would have to lay to win $100 to win $100 on the Kansas City Chiefs To win the AFC West, you've got to lay 400. So 400 pays, which is just an astronomical favorite. Those are like New England Patriot days when they were, dominating that division. Now let's get to here's where I'm going to put a test to you. Of the three other teams in the division, I'm going to read the numbers to you. I wanted to have them on the screen here, but I lost the audio, the visual there. But anyway, the Los Angeles Chargers looks like they're about 8-1 to win the division. LA Chargers 8-1 to win the division, the AFC West. Denver Broncos 8-1 to win the division. This is at Spreads.ca. And then the Las Vegas Raiders 10-1. 10-1 on the Raiders, 8-1 on the Chargers, 8-1 on the Broncos. You can't choose the Chiefs. So give me your best advice on the other three teams.
Well, the only one that I would take, if you forced me to take one, would actually be the Raiders. Because Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Drew Lock or Tyrod Taylor of the Broncos and the Chargers. And if the Raiders got hot, and they do have a good running back, and their defense came alive, you have an outside shot. So if Mahomes got hurt and the Chiefs fell for some reason, I actually like the odds at 10-1 better on the Raiders than 8-1 on the Broncos or the Chargers.
Scott?
I'm not taking any of those. The Chiefs are running away with it. I mean, I cannot imagine spending any money at those prices. You'd have to offer me closer to 20-1 for me to take any of those.
I agree with that. That's why I don't like these futures bets.
Yeah. But did you say the Chiefs were only minus 400? Was that what
That's correct.
What I was getting from?
That's correct.
I mean, I really love the Chiefs at minus 400. You said we can't have it, but
what if Mahomes goes down? Mahomes was injured last season for a couple of games. What if Mahomes goes down in week 2?
Okay, Mahomes was injured for a while last year, and who won the division? He still won
wow.
it.
Bang.
This team is going to run away with the division. It's not just Mahomes. They're such a complete team. Their offensive skill players are better than the other three teams, and their defense is on par with the other teams. And I just think you put a generic quarterback in there, they still have a shot. Because none of the other teams have quarterbacks that are really fantastic anyway. I just, short of Mahomes either being out for the season or opting out and going home, I just can't take anybody else to win this division. And I think minus 400 is a nice price, actually. You won't let me have it, but if I was betting futures, that would be one of them that my eyes would be on.
All right. Well, I'll just say one thing, and I'm surprised this hasn't come up a little more in this discussion. I think it's the only thing we probably didn't discuss maybe enough, although we're pretty much at the end of time here, and that's coaching. Andy Reid is so far head and shoulders, at least as a proven track record. We don't know about some of the younger coaches in Denver and in LA. John Gruden's a joke. He hasn't been relevant in the last 20 years in this league, or 15 years rather. Unproven, won 7 games last season. I think John Gruden, with his long-term contract, is living his retirement out on the sidelines here in Las Vegas. I don't like that hire at all. I think it'd be gone in 2.5, 3 years here in LA, in Las Vegas. I think Andy Reid, when it comes to if he was to suffer losing Mahomes at quarterback, you're right. He's one of those Belichick figures that can somehow squeeze talent, devise game plans, and he just wins. He just wins games. That's his whole career. And he's won with quarterbacks like Alex Smith and, a lot of, basically not A-listers. So I do completely concede that the Chiefs are head and shoulders above everyone else, but not just because of the players, but because of Andy Reid. Any last thoughts there?
No, I agree. He's the best coach, and they have the best quarterback, and they're going to win a lot of games, the Chiefs.
All right, excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me here on Slapshot. It was a fun show. I think I got a lot out of it. I hope that those of you who are watching may check out the site. Check out Pointspreads.ca. We have a lot of fun content. Larry Greenfield, thank you for joining me here and also for writing for the site. Scott Samarel, thank you also for joining us, first-time guest. I hope you'll come back again. And I think we're going to be serenaded off this evening Those of you who have stuck around, Scott, you're going to give us a little serenade in tribute to today. Charlie Parker's 100th birthday would have been today. He played the tenor sax, or the alto sax, and you played the tenor sax. But let's hear it. Take it away. Thank you very much. I'm Nolan Dalla for Pointspreads.ca. We'll see you next time. Scott Samarel on sax.
All right. I'm just going to do a little something. We love Charlie Parker, but just a little something here. I know we run a little long on time, so just give it a quick play.
Bravo.
All right. Well, thank you. And
see you next time, everybody.
You,